station. Essential Sports Hub headline presented by Celsius Energy Drinks.
David Pastrnak had a hat trick and added 2 more assists last night as the Bruins beat the Carolina Hurricanes 5-1. Jeremy Swayman made 39 saves in the win. The Red Sox were rained out yesterday, so they'll play a doubleheader today against the St. Louis Cardinals. First game starts at 1:35, followed by a scheduled 7 o'clock start at Fenway. The New England Revolution visited FC Cincinnati last night. They lost that game 1-0. The New England Free Jacks host the Miami Sharks this afternoon in Quincy at 2 o'clock. The men's national championship in basketball is set after the Final Four last night. Final Four. Florida knocked off Auburn to claim 1 spot, and then Houston erased a 14-point deficit with 8 minutes to go to beat Duke. Florida and Houston will play for the title on Monday night. The women's national championship game, that is later today, with UConn taking on South Carolina, and at the Valero Texas Open, Brian Harmon with a 3-shot lead heading into the final day of play. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Enjoy quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit NewEnglandOilChange.com for 15% off your drive-thru oil change, the official oil change of busy people. I'm Alex Barth on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update at 9 o'clock.
Listen to it, laugh at it, get mad at it, agree with it, argue about it. It is Boston Sports. Boston Sports. And it is all we do. 98.5 The Sports Hub. This is Sunday Kickoff with Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle. The show that's all Patriots, all football, all year long. The trades, the signings, the front office moves. This is the show that has it all covered. Sunday Kickoff, brought to you by Surfside Iced Tea and Vodka, Prolo Therapy, Blue Sky Restoration Contractors, and Hooters. Now, here are Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle.
Good morning and welcome into Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff, April 6th. It's Alex Barth, Cerrone Battle. George Sepulveda behind the glass this morning as we get going, continuing to gear up towards the NFL draft. But a busy week for the Patriots. Mike Vrabel, Elliott Wolf spoke down at the owners' meetings, and to our own Mike Felger here at Sports Hub. Arguably the biggest pro day on the circuit this year, Colorado. That took place this week, and the Patriots made a trade, which we will get to as well as we get started here. Cerrone, good morning.
And good morning, Alex. How you doing, man? I know you're tired, man. I know you've been through it, but good for you, man.
Can you tell? Is it coming across? I was trying to get the energy up a little bit. I guess we'll have to get it going here.
Plus, no, not that. I'm just saying in general, just your coverage of all the stuff that's going on, man, and I think everybody appreciates it, man. You're almost there.
Thank you. Well, this is the time of year where it's like the pro days are basically done.
Mm-hmm.
The 30 visits are coming in, but there's only so much you can do with that. And so I look at it and I'm like, all right, like the pre-draft process is kind of wrapped up. It's just now the draft. All right, cool. So we're right around the corner, right? Oh no, we got 3 more weeks or 2.5 more weeks. And this is when things start to get a little nuts. This is when things start to get a little wild. So we'll have some fun with that as we go through. Plus your calls, 617-779-0985 if you want to talk draft with us. But I actually just want to start, I guess it is draft, not draft, just big picture with some of the stuff Mike Vrabel said this week down in Florida. And we're going to start with the offensive line, which arguably should be the biggest concern as the Patriots restore their roster heading into 2025. And this is our Restoring the Roster segment brought to you by Blue Sky Restoration Contractors. If your home or business is damaged by a property disaster, call Blue Sky first. With locations across New England, they'll take care of everything from beginning to end. Visit goblusky.com, no E, blusky.com. Blue Sky Restoration, restoring your property and your life for a brighter tomorrow. So there's quite a bit. There's really a lot Monday from both Mike Vrabel, who did his media availability. He was also on with Felger. I think he also did a hit, if I'm remembering correctly, there was so much with Florio. Mm-hmm. Elliott Wolf spoke with Felger. Both really good interviews, by the way. You can find those. We posted those along with the Patriots Hub podcast, or you can find them right on 98.5thesportshub.com under the Patriots tab. Full interviews, Felger with both Vrabel and Wolf. Wolf also spoke to Kay Adams, so there was a lot going on. The big one that stood out to me, though, and it was right off the rip. First thing Mike Vrabel gets asked about, sits down Monday morning. He hasn't spoken since before free agency. Or I guess he spoke, but he didn't take questions. He spoke when everybody, when they welcomed in the free agents. But first time we've heard from him in a while. First question right away, boom. What is your plan at left tackle? What's the plan? And Vrabel started off saying the plan is we're going to continue to evaluate our roster, kind of a coach speak thing. And then we got into the interesting stuff. So before they even got to the rookies, and we'll just kind of go in the order he answered it, he brings up Caden Wallace, who the Patriots drafted last year in the 3rd round, career right tackle in college. The reporting was the Patriots were going to try him at left tackle. They did that very briefly in training camp. It didn't work. He's moved back to the right side, played okay, but only got through really 4 games before he got hurt, missed most of the season, so he's a relative unknown. Vrabel talked about that they might try him at left tackle, and Felger asked Elliot Wolf about it, and Wolf said, we see him primarily as a tackle, but we think he has the athleticism and the footwork where we can try him at left. And I think that worried some people. I would say if the plan is to, all right, Caden Wallace is going to be in the competition at left tackle to start, I'd be worried, because if you're not bringing in somebody who's just above there being a competition between Caden Wallace and Vidarian Lowe, like, they screwed up.
Yeah.
But something that's gotten lost, and we've talked about a little bit, Cerrone, in them needing starting tackles, they also need backups.
Yeah, it's none.
Right, Vidarian Lowe is the only true left tackle on the roster right now.
Yeah, so they have to move somebody over or bring somebody in.
Right. If they think Caden Wallace can be a swing tackle, think like the Adrian Waddle, right? All right, well, we'll develop him on the right side behind Morgan Moses, but also we're going to get him some snaps at left, so if we need him there in an emergency, he can play there. If that's the plan, fine. Which I think is the plan, because then moving forward, he gets asked about the guys in the draft, and he was very complimentary of both Will Campbell and Armand Membu, and downplayed the questions with both. With Campbell, it's the length, although we got more evidence this week, Cerrone, that the NFL screwed up the arm length measurement at the Combine, and Dane Brugler reporting teams might not use that measurement. So I think we can pencil in or Sharpie in Will Campbell at 33-inch arms. Also downplayed the difficulty of Membu having to switch sides, which Elliot Wolf did as well. And then Doug Marrone, the offensive line coach, spoke later in the week. He downplayed both of those too. So they seem to like both tackles. Who do they like more? I kind of feel like it's Campbell, but I think they'd be comfortable with either. But it does feel like, and we'll get to Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter in a little bit, but, well, are they going to be worried about Campbell's length? Are they going to be worried about Membu changing positions? That certainly wasn't the vibe this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting how this whole thing plays out. And what I was going to ask you about Membu, do you think they can get him later, as opposed, like, say if they trade out of the pick and they fall back a few slots, you think he'll be available? Like, are they the only team that's really that high on him, where they feel they can get him later on in the draft, or do they have to grab him at 4? And will people be kind of happy with them taking Membu at 4, knowing he's going to be a project to move to left tackle? And also, it goes to show that every single player in this draft, except for probably Abdul Carter and the quarterbacks, they have the huge question marks. It's the whole Hunter being 100% at wide receiver. It's Will Campbell. How is he going to play out the arm length thing with him? Membu, is he going to switch over? There's something with each one of them. But I'm wondering, if they say Membu's going to be our guy, we're going to trade out of that. Will he be available? If they trade back to, I don't know, 9, 10 or something like that, do you think someone else can jump in and snatch him up before they can get to him?
Yeah, I mean, look, it depends how far they move back. 9 is tough, because I look at the Jets sitting at 7. They need a right tackle. So that big question as it relates to Armand Membu, right, is not an issue for them. Honestly, the guy I wonder, I think Campbell might have a better chance of falling, just as I look at the teams. There is some, now, if teams view him as a guard and they're willing to take a guard high, Vegas at 6 makes sense. I guess if you're moving back to 9, you're not worried about the Saints. Campbell might have a better chance to fall. Although then again, it's the Jets, and they might get it wrong and say, "Oh, everybody's worried about moving this right tackle to left. Let's draft the left tackle and we'll
move to right."
Right? Like I'm not putting
very Jets-like.
I'm not putting that past the Jets. So you don't know, and like that's the risk you take. And I think a lot of people are just looking trade back. You asked me to start there. A fan's going to be disappointed if they take Membu. I think anybody short of Travis Hunter, and there's going to be blowback. Even Abdul Carter, I think that there is a bigger, and I'm not saying that I agree with this, but because I don't, but I think there's a bigger portion of the fan base than people realize who look at it and say they can't go defense at the top of the draft after the free agency they just had. Abdul Carter, as good as he is, like, then get the haul, then move back and get the haul if he's really that good. And I don't know if the trade back is going to be there, because here's the question I ask:
Is there a haul waiting for you? It's
And look, you're going to weigh the options, even if it's not this grandiose offer. But if you're moving back, let's say 9, let's put 9 out there, and it's a second round pick coming back in return. That's it. And you're moving back from 4 to 9. You're getting, I want to say the Saints have 44. I forget off the top of my head, 40. So you're moving 4 to 9, you're getting 40. That's it. And you know there's a real chance Will Campbell and Armand Membu both go between 4 and 9. I just said it might not be the most likely thing, but it's on the table.
It's possible.
Teams can trade up all of that. Is missing on a left tackle worth the 40th overall pick in the draft? That's what you have to ask yourself. I don't know that it is. In this draft, I don't know that it is. Now, maybe you're then using 38 and 40 to move back up. Like, there's all these different ways you can get creative with it. But I don't. There was a viral tweet going around this week that I just got such a kick out of. And it's a very, like, mundane, normal joke. But I kind of feel like where we're all at right now. Somebody just goes, in quotes, "We should trade back. There's no good value left where my team is drafting. But I'm sure another team would like to give up assets to move into this same spot." And that's kind of where we're at. Like,
true.
I would love it if the Patriots could trade back. Who's coming up? Do the Saints love Shedeur Sanders? That's probably the best choice or the best option the Patriots have. But I don't know. Shedeur Sanders gets past 2 quarterback-needy teams in the Browns and Giants.
I don't think so.
Are the Saints like the outlier? That's basically what you're asking for. So the trade down is going to be tough for me.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it. I'm not saying I'm against it. I just don't know that it takes 2 to tango. I don't know that the opportunity is going to be there.
Yeah, and again, we've talked about this, I think, every week for the past 3 weeks. Another week has gone by without any trades in the draft.
Yep.
You know, remember there was this whole story about this is the furthest it's gone without any movement being done in the draft. And another week has gone by and there hasn't been any trades. And I don't see this haul waiting for that pick. I don't see anybody fighting to get up there. Now, it might change as the names start rolling off and say, "Oh no, Sanders is available," or some big surprise pops up. Someone might try and hop in front of you. But I don't see I'm giving up my first, next year's first, and my second this year to move up a couple slots. I don't think that's going to happen this year. And I think if it was, it might have happened by now. But I don't see it coming. And I think you're stuck in that spot where you're just going to have to make a decision on whatever, basically whoever's left. Of course, if Abdul Carter goes or Hunter goes, okay, is it going to be Will Campbell? Is it going to be Abdul Carter? That's the decision I think they're stuck with right now. It's not a bad decision to be stuck with, but I think that's where this team is going to be. And I agree with you. I don't see those quarterback needy teams passing up on a quarterback. I don't see these teams with these coaches that are already on the hot seat that we're surprised to still have jobs passing up on quarterbacks and just going into the season as is. The Giants. I don't see that happening at all. I think both those quarterbacks would be gone before the Patriots are picking.
Let's grab a quick call before we hit the break. Matt in Rhode Island getting us started this morning with the tackle question. Matt.
Yeah. Just first, can I, Cerrone, I'd like to digress just real quick to your show yesterday with Leroy. I was listening. So I heard you come out with the coaches at first, and you said Brad Stevens. I was like, this is crazy, but you had me thinking, and you had a lot of, outside the box, and that's what I like. It was really interesting. So good on you. So listen, what's up with Kelvin Banks? He seems to be left out of the conversation. It seems like the kid from Missouri kind of moved past him. Where is he going to fit in? Is he pushed back to the later in the first round, or what do you think? Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Matt. It's a good question. I feel like Kelvin Banks has gotten lost in this. Real quick, though, Cerrone, on your takes from yesterday, I'm with you on Cooper Flag going back to school. I'm not ruling that out.
I think he does. I got a feeling, man.
I'm not ruling that out. Kelvin Banks. So you hear sometimes this time of year prospect fatigue. You hear players are suffering from prospect fatigue. And what that means is, we did this with Drake May last year. I think we did it with every quarterback last year.
Yeah, we did.
You talk so much about a prospect, and there's only, so much, especially guys at the top of the draft, there's only so much you can say before you get repetitive. You start looking for new angles. Usually at the guys at the top of the draft, you're pointing out critiques that weren't made earlier. Everybody gets tired of talking about the guy, so he gets pushed down the board because people want to talk about everybody else. That's prospect fatigue. Kelvin Banks has... I don't know that I've ever really seen this. Whatever the opposite of prospect fatigue
no one said a thing about him.
Prospect absence. He wasn't at the Senior Bowl. He was fine at the Combine. He wasn't good or wasn't bad. He was there. He did exactly what was expected. The tape is the tape. He's just he kind of gets forgotten about. He gets lost in the wash. Why do I think he got passed by Membu? I think at least talking about it locally, we were so locked in on the Patriots adding a left tackle specifically that we didn't talk a lot about Membu early on because he was a right tackle. And then the more you look at it, you realize there's a chance maybe Membu moves over. If they move back to 9, maybe Banks is the guy, but that would be a little high. There are some concerns about his ability to block in space. Some people may think that he might end up moving inside to guard. I think I've heard every tackle prospect in this class at this point projected inside to guard, so take that for what it's worth. His arm length is long enough. It's more just stylistically. But if they think he can play left tackle, it probably does make it easier to handle the trade down. Because if all right, if we miss Campbell and Membu, I would be shocked if 3 tackles go in the top 8. Right, if you're moving down to 9, if Banks slides in there as well, because the Panthers objectively don't need a tackle, the Jaguars probably don't need a tackle, the Raiders probably don't, or they have significantly bigger needs that shouldn't be taking a tackle that high. Yeah, right. So there is some room where maybe you grab him in there somewhere if there's an early run on tackles, but that will be a question, and of course, it's all predicated on. Are they going to have a shot at one of the top 2 guys in the draft? Are they going to have to make this choice? Or is one of the guys, the blue chip prospects, going to be there? We may have gotten some information on that this week at the Colorado Pro Day. We'll get to that next here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
Stay tuned for more Sunday Kickoff on the Sports Hub.
Hey, it's Maz. Don't wait for summer.
never too early to talk football on Sunday.
Coming to the game on Sunday.
This is Sunday Kickoff with Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Back here on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff, Alex Barth, Cerrone Battle. And I think Thursday, right, was the Colorado Pro Day?
Yeah, pretty sure.
And there was a lot of noise made about the Giants' presence there, about the Browns' presence there. And then the question, who was the presence for? Travis Hunter or Shedeur Sanders?
Mm-hmm.
My guess, I'm going to go with the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Patriots did have somebody there. Ryan Cowden was there, and I was talking to Jim Murray yesterday about this. He's like, well, Patriots, sent one guy. These other teams sent all these different players, all these different evaluators. Does that mean, do the Giants know they're taking Hunter, or do the Browns know they're taking Hunter? You send the group to watch the quarterback. There's nothing Travis Hunter did at that pro day. There shouldn't be to impact his draft stock one way or another. He is, it's on the film. He is who he is. You shouldn't be making a decision based off of that. Now, the quarterback, it's different. Remember how many people went from the Patriots to watch the quarterbacks last year, seeing how the quarterbacks handle themselves, seeing the way the ball comes out of his hand. You had that experience at Drake May's Pro Day last year.
It was everybody there except for Robert Kraft.
Right. So the question is, though, now is the Browns did have a heavy presence there, including ownership. That is a quarterback sort of approach. You're sending ownership there to meet the quarterback. Travis Hunter, phenomenal talent. You're sending ownership there to meet the quarterback. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, if that's the case, let's say the Giants go Sanders, or the Browns go Sanders, sorry.
Yep.
We talked about this a little bit last week. The Giants probably go Travis Hunter over Abdul Carter.
Mm-hmm.
And now it looks like you're in a situation where this is since really the playoff game against Oregon, where it became clear Abdul Carter was not this kind of, oh yeah, he's like a top 10 guy, and if you really know ball, you like him. No, he's top of the draft guy. This is the best I felt, the highest odds I felt since then that Abdul Carter could fall to 4 in the Patriots. I feel like this is the most likely it's been as we sit here right now.
Yeah. And it's weird because almost like Calvin Banks, I think Abdul Carter's name is kind of getting lost over the past couple of weeks. It's like no one's kind of talking about him anymore. It's not saying they think he's not the talented guy. All you're hearing is the two quarterbacks, Travis Hunter, and then everything else after that. Even Will Campbell's arm lift situation, I think was the biggest story than anything about Abdul Carter. And I think he's kind of getting lost in the shuffle here. And even locally, I think you don't hear as many fans or anyone really talking about Abdul Carter and the impact he can have on the team. Maybe because people just assume that he wouldn't be there, he'd be the guy taken. But look, I think if he gets drafted by the Patriots, you're going to have people who are upset about the Hunter situation. But if Hunter's taken, if he's drafted ahead of him, it takes the team off the hook, but it wasn't their decision to not pick Travis Hunter. He was just gone before they can get there. And people are going to feel some type of way about, we should have got a left tackle, whatever. But I think as the dust settles, I think everyone would be fine with Abdul Carter being a New England Patriot. But it is weird how you don't really hear his name mentioned as much as you did a couple weeks ago.
I mean, you talk about a finishing piece for this defense. They've added everything except that lead pass rusher.
Edge rusher.
They have some complimentary guys, Harold Landry, Caleb Von Chason. They have some guys that will go in and contribute, but those are more just to compare it to the way they've been set up the last few years, like the guys like Josh Uche. The guys that are going to come in and clean up what your star pass rusher, the havoc he's creating. They still don't have a Matthew Judon type. Mm-hmm. Abdul Carter, I mean, if you're taking him that high, any edge rush you take that high, any edge rush you take in the first round, really, although there's some guys projected to go in the first round this year that might be more situational, any edge guy you take in the first round should be that level of player. That's Carter's ceiling. That's his potential.
Yeah.
The defense is set. I mean, you're going to have a really complete, solid defense. Now, that still leaves you open on offense, and you're going to have to get aggressive in a way to get a tackle Wide receiver probably gets pushed way down the list of needs, but you can't not add the best player in the draft if he's there.
Yeah.
You can't unless somebody gives you a real haul. And by real haul, I mean starting with a future first-round pick. Starting with the future first-round pick, plus obviously whatever pick they're moving up from, and then probably a second this year, next year too, is where I'm starting that conversation. I don't think that offer is going to be there.
No,
I don't think it is. Just like last year.
Think either.
There was an offer when we talked about this with Drake May. Is there an offer? There was an offer I would take. It was nowhere close to what was going to come through. But you asked me what it would take. Obviously, you're moving up, so you're swapping first this year, future first next year. That's non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
And then a second either this year or next year, at least. And then maybe I'm opening up the bidding more from there.
And look, if as you were talking just now, I thought about it. I mean, you talk about the moves they've made on defense. Increasing the secondary with you got another player opposite of Gonzalez now. If you have two good corners out there and you add an edge rusher like this, your offense, you're gonna need to make improvements on your offense, but you're gonna be getting the ball back a lot. It's gonna be a lot of 3-and-outs, a lot of extra possessions. Hopefully some more, turnover. Hopefully they can increase their turnover production, which is something they really haven't done in the last couple years. You have to do that. You have to force some fumbles. You got to get some interceptions and deflections, 3-and-outs. You got to do something to get the ball back. And I think adding Abdul Carter to what you've already done, like you said, it makes it that much better and that much easier to get more possessions out of your team, get Drake May back on the field. And, you're not sitting there watching teams gash you up and down the field like they were last year. But I don't think anyone would be mad at that. And if he's there and he's the guy, you're sitting there and you got to send that name up there to the league, and you're waiting for that phone to ring, like you said, that's when you say it's better be a haul. You better give me a haul. If I got the next great edge rusher coming through, I got the Pro Bowl guy, I got my Micah Parsons. You better give me something a crazy deal on the other end for me to get out of this situation. And look, I think that's going to be the case if it's Hunter or Carter. But I think if you get an Abdul Carter, Mike Vrabel, defensive guy, edge rusher himself, outside linebacker, whatever, I think he'd be real happy with a guy from, a Penn State guy at that, Ohio State, but a Penn State guy who's dominant like this, that we all know, we all see his talents, and that guy that probably makes everybody else in that front seven better when he's at the top of his game. So you got to get a real haul to get out of that position. You
give Mike Vrabel and Terrell Williams a guy like Abdul Carter, they're going to get the most out of him. I don't doubt that. You talk. When I was on with Jim yesterday, we were talking about, really it was Genty, but like maximizing your picks at the top of the draft. You want to take somebody that you have a clear path to success for and the best path to success for. I don't know that there's a play, and he's the best player in the draft, so maybe this is no duh, but like, even if he wasn't, right? Even if you think Hunter's better, or even if you think Campbell's better, I don't know that there's a player in this draft that has a more clear path to success in New England specifically than a guy like Abdul Carter. Walter is in Boston. He has a thought on the top of the draft. Walter.
Yeah, well, before I say anything, it's like, thank you guys for the sanity on the Milton trade, because all these people are asking for way too much. But my thing is, if Campbell's arms are really 33, after watching him do what he did, I take him, but I just don't see how the Pats don't bring in like Smith or the kid Wilkins, just to have a real veteran back there. And Brown, this is not trying to brown nose dude. It's like, I don't see how you don't work for them, because I remember all the way back to Romeo Dobbs and then Reed a couple years ago. There were guys that we all seen. We watched college football that would have been really good for the Patriots, and they pass on them every year. It's like, so how can you see all of that and them guys not see it? Because I just don't get it. Have a good day.
I really appreciate that, Walter. On the veteran tackle thing, real quick, I feel like if they were going to sign Tyron Smith, they would have done it. He seems like the kind of guy that's going to go to a contender. So it'd be great if they could bring him in. I don't know if they're going to do that. As for the other, and thank you very much, Walter. I appreciate it. And I do try to stress this every draft cycle. I don't know if I've talked about this yet this year. Sometimes with that stuff, like I have a fraction of the information that they have, right? I can watch those guys during the season. I can watch them on film. I can read the reports, what the insiders are saying. I can't sit in the meetings. I don't have access to the medical records. Not that I'd be able to understand them if I did. I don't I don't know what they were like in the locker room in college. I talked to people that I try to find out, but and then you find out after the draft. Sometimes wow, that guy really fell. What happened? You find out, he was a really bad teammate in college, or he had an injury that was undisclosed. Remember Nolan Smith a couple years ago? Like I was really high on Nolan Smith, and I couldn't believe he fell as much as he did. And then we find out during the draft, by the way, he has a shoulder injury that is a big issue that completely went uncovered. So you
never know.
Right. There's things like that. You don't know. Guy might come here, have a bad meeting. That's what happened now it didn't work out. That's what happened in 2019. That A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, the Patriots didn't love their meetings here, so they go with N'Keal Harry. So I appreciate the compliment. There are some I will still absolutely take my victory lap on. I don't even think he mentioned Tariq Woolen. The two big ones for me are Tariq Woolen and Isaiah Pacheco. Those were two guys that I freaking loved during the process. I've never heard – they were day 3 picks to begin with. It's not like I was expecting them to take them high. I never heard any sort of real questions about why they might not come here. And obviously both are tremendous players, Pacheco especially. Those are the two I'll take my victory lap on always. But to be fair, there are things that
just don't know.
Just because the guy's a good football player, there is more to the draft than that I might not know. Another A.D. Mitchell last year, it came out right before the draft that there were some issues with, what is it? He has diabetes and he doesn't manage it well or something like that. So
yeah, and it's just to add to that.
Yeah,
a lot of these things you don't find out until now. We're getting all these podcasts and these documentaries.
Yeah,
and you find out that some of these guys are just pure jerks. It's like we see the highlights, we see the scouting reports. But then you find out the dude is just a wild guy. You just never know. And a lot of that stuff, these owners are like, no, I don't want anything to do with that guy. And there's a lot of things that go on. If anybody who lives near major college, major universities, was a bunch of them. Where I'm at with I got UNC, Wake Forest, NC State. They're all close to each other. So you hear all the little stories a couple football players, arrested by campus police, but you never hear the names, you never hear anything. But you don't find out that stuff until years down the line, and you're like, wait, all that happened? But the owners, these teams know that information. But like I said, we don't really find out a lot of that stuff until something happens when they're in the league, and then it says, well, he did have this thing in college or whatever, and you just never know that but basically it's beyond the 40 times. Beyond the highlights and the touchdowns, what kind of person is he and how healthy are these guys really? And I think those are the things that we really can't see or can't tell.
Yeah, look, if I was in the meeting, and look, I got to go to the Combine this year, talk to prospects a little bit, so that was cool. But if I was really in the meetings, I don't know. Maybe my takes would be different, but I'm not. I got to work with what I have. So I want to get back to Vrabel and Wolf, some other stuff that they talked about this week at the owners' meetings, including we might have been ahead of something on this show, Cerrone, based on a report this morning. So we'll get to that next here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff is on the way on the
to swing hard-legged.
Every football game starts with the kickoff. This is Sunday Kickoff with Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle on your home for Patriots football. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Patriots haven't signed a running back yet. Is that an area you like to address in the draft?
I mean, I think so. Having a good young runner, something that's potentially something that we would like to do. I thought the guys coming back, I think Ramondre and Gibby, I think obviously we're a good 1-2 punch. People are going to talk about Ramondre and putting the ball on the ground, and he knows that, but we'll help him there, and we'll also, we're going to help make sure the other 10 players know that their job is to protect the guy with the ball as well. There were some opportunities on there for me to teach the other guys that, that second guy in, the guy you don't see is the one that's making the fumble or causing the fumble. And so it's a great opportunity for me to show those other players that their guys, the one coming in there to knock the ball loose. And so is that going to all be on the running back? No. It's going to be on the guy that's letting his guy get in there and make the hit. So those are great opportunities for me. But we'll love to add good young players on offense and skill players.
That was Mike Vrabel this week at the NFL owners meetings. Alex Barth, Cerrone Battle with you on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. You want to join the conversation? 617-779-0985. And you heard Vrabel there. So there's two real takeaways from that. One, this team's standing behind Ramondre Stevenson. Like, they still believe they can turn him around. The fumble issues last year would be one thing if it was a constant issue. And I wrote about this on 98.5thesportshub.com this week if you want to check it out. He had 7 fumbles his first 3 seasons combined.
Yeah.
Including just one in 2023. And then he had 7 fumbles total last year. So they think it's fixable. I talked to Tony Dews, the new running backs coach, about that this week as well. Kind of similar to Vrabel, that's something they believe they can work on him with. But you heard Vrabel say at the beginning there, when asked if the team's going to add a running back, quote, "I think so. Having a good young runner is potentially something we would like to do." So Mike Reese followed up on that quote this morning in his Sunday notes, which are a must-read if you're a Patriots fan. That's literally Sunday mornings when I get up for the show. It's like the first thing I do. I read Mike to catch up, right? What are we going to talk about on the show this morning? And he notes, his first note is that it would be, he notes that the Patriots could very well add a running back. Says it's a surprise if they'd invest high draft capital. So a guy like Genti, obviously Amari and Hampton, those Ohio State guys, maybe that's a little high. But he notes after the first round, anything would seemingly be in play, especially if the pick complemented the more rugged playing styles of Stevenson, Antonio Gibson, and Terrell Jennings, perhaps in the form of a smaller, quicker passing back. And he goes on to name a couple of examples from the Patriots. Talks about Kevin Falk, Shane Vereen, Danny Woodhead, James White, Brandon Bolden, and then a couple guys in the draft. And these are guys we've talked about. LaQuint Allen from Syracuse, who was the leading receiver among running backs in college football last year. Bashard Smith from SMU. He's a converted receiver. He's got a little more speed. LaQuint's got a little more technical skill. I love this. I love that they're going to bring back the passing back. I think this is going to be a great thing for Drake May. I think it's going to be a big help for Ramondre Stevenson. It's going to help them manage his workload better. I'm happy to hear this. And I'm also happy to hear they're sticking with Stevenson. I know people are down on him. If he can fix the fumbles, like, he's a solid back, and they don't need to overextend themselves to add at the position where they just paid a guy. So if he can get the fumbles fixed and they add a passing down back, the running back position does a 180 overnight, and they're in great shape there.
Yeah, and with the movement on the offensive line. If you improve your offensive line, now,
of course,
Stevenson isn't getting nailed the minute he takes a handoff, and I think that led to a lot of the fumbles. He takes a handoff before he can secure the ball. He was wrapped up last year. How many times? I remember the stats you kept putting out earlier in the season, how many yards he had after contact, which was like all of them.
It was more. There were a couple games where he had more yards after contact than he had yards from scrimmage.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. So hopefully those things change. Now he's got open lanes. He's not getting hit by as many guys and that can force fumbles, hold them up and strip the ball, all those type of things. But like I said, me and you talked about this, a few times about them bringing that position back. Not position, but that style of playback where you got, you go 5 wide and one of the 5 is the running back. And not just putting a running back out there, but one who's a real threat on third down. He's a real threat when you spread him out. He's a real threat when you go no huddle. Not just in the screen game, but he's out there running slants. He's getting out drag routes. He's doing everything. And he's just a nightmare matchup for linebackers when you're trying to run your up-tempo, no-huddle stuff. And we seen I know it's Tom Brady, but we've seen how effective it is in big games, big situations, getting Brady another weapon. With Drake May having somebody like that underneath, just working guys, it makes it so much easier on everybody else. It makes you, the biggest thing, it makes you unpredictable. It gives you so many more options. It makes you so much harder to defend. If your tight ends are going to be good now, you have that pass-catching running back. Now you have a Stephon Diggs on the outside. You got a Pop Douglas shaking guys out of their shoes one way. Now the defense doesn't know what's coming. Now they're sitting back on their heels, and Drake May is allowed to do his thing. Plus, Drake May's ability to get to escape and do things with his feet also gives you another weapon when you spread out like that. So I would love for them to address it. And not sure exactly what guy they're targeting here, but I do think bringing that position back or bringing that style of play back would be a huge addition to this offense. And I think that will give you a huge bump in your points per game that we've seen decline over the last few years.
Anything else stand out to you this week from Vrabel, Wolf, the coaches?
No, I mean, the running back situation, I've been down on Stevenson.
Yep.
But I think they will address it. They will draft a guy. I'm not saying you just go cut Stevenson and put the rookie out there. But I do think you needed more depth in that running back room. I think you needed a little more explosiveness, a little more balance. And you see it around the league. You see a lot of the good teams, they're not just running one running back. They're running a plethora of guys out there, keep guys fresh or whatever. And I understand where Vrabel's coming from with the ground. I mean, we saw what happened with him when he was in Tennessee. That was their offense. They ran the ball. They played great defense. And I don't see him getting too far away from that. I mean, he has Drake May now as opposed to what he had in Tennessee. But him addressing the running backs and saying, keeping Stevenson, but adding more guys, that's basically what I've been screaming for the longest. And I do hope they address it. And I don't want them to address it with some guy, the 10th best running back late in the 7th round. I know you can't get the top 2 guys. They're going to cost you first, second round picks. But then after that, I would love to see them get a real playmaker in this draft.
I wouldn't worry about where the back is selected. And I've been saying this, and Mike wrote about it this morning. The 7th round backs this year are not your typical 7th round backs.
Yeah. This kid from Michigan, they got a 7th.
Right. This class is so deep. I really don't mind if they wait on a back because that the value's there. Most years, a guy like LaQuint Allen is going to be a 4th or 5th round pick. And he's projected, maybe outside the top 200 this year. Same for Brashard Smith. I think might go a little higher, but it's that same idea. I don't mind if they wait. I want them to add somebody, especially if it's that pass catcher, but I really don't mind if they wait. A couple more things. Or go ahead.
Real question for you. I meant to ask you this last week.
Yeah.
Is the running back position in this draft the deepest?
Yeah.
Is it the most deepest? Is it the position of this draft?
Probably. It's running back or like defensive tackle, defensive lineman. That one's. I wrote my defensive line preview, the positional preview this week on 98.5thesportshub.com, and I think I mentioned 30-something players. It was the longest. It took me longer in the offensive line, which is obviously combining positions. So, like that defensive line edge group is right there with the running backs. Another group that's pretty deep is tight end. Mike Vrabel raved about the tight end position in general this week, raved about Tyler Warren. I don't know if they're going to take Tyler Warren, but I kind of thought that my philosophy on tight end had been, we have Hunter Henry, you have Austin Hooper coming back. I don't know that, like, if you draft a guy in the top 100, is he going to play? Yeah. And how many snaps are going to be available to him pending injury beyond those 2 guys? And unless they're drafting a tackle to eventually replace Morgan Moses, their top 100 picks need to be guys that play.
Yeah.
And after hearing Vrabel talk, maybe there is going to be some 13 personnel. Maybe they are going to get creative with some of these tight ends, and the right rookie could play a little more than expected. Maybe play over Austin Hooper in certain situations. So I'm a little more open to a tight end higher. I always wanted them to take a tight end, but maybe some of those top 100 tight ends, a guy like Mason Taylor, a guy like Gunnar Helm, if Terrence Ferguson goes higher, I'd love him at 106, but maybe you take him a little higher if you really believe in him. And the other thing is Jeremy Springer saying they're going to add a kicker. So we are going to have a kicker
competition. You need a kicker.
That seems relevant as well. All right, we'll get right to your calls next. Here's to wrap up the first hour. 1 hour down, 1 hour to go on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff coming up on the Sports Hub. and Cerrone Battle are here, talking football every Sunday morning with the insiders and with you. It's Sunday Kickoff on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Right to your calls here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. Let's start with Dan in Rhode Island. Has a draft trade idea. Dan, good morning.
Hey, Cerrone. Hey, Alex. How you doing? It's not so much a trade. Well, it is a trade, but if it is ends up being a draft back to a draft up, or even if you stay where you are, I watched enough college football. I'm not an expert or anything, but I remember watching Debo years ago saying this guy's going to be good no matter what. I get the same feeling with Matthew Golden. I don't know where he's going to go. Is he in the 20s or something? But doesn't he just look like a guy that is going to be good? Forget how big he is or anything. He just looks like he's going to be a good player for some team. That's just the type of guy I think you should trade up for because they have enough capital to do it, I assume. But I just don't know where he's going in the draft. I just want your opinion on it. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Dan. He's probably going to go late teens. Maybe he gets 20, 21. I think if the Steelers get Rodgers, Pittsburgh at 21, you put him in there with Pickens and with Metcalf, and that's a really good room for Rodgers to throw to. The thing with Golden, there's some flashes that I really like, and I'm very high on Matthew Golden. I am. They are kind of flashes. He doesn't have a ton of overall college experience. If you look at him statistically and just in terms of games played compared to some other first-round receivers or snaps played, he's well behind, the guys who got in the first round in the last few years. Has not had a 1,000-yard season at the college level. He had 987 yards last year, which was a career high in 3 years. So he is more of a ceiling guy. You're betting on him. But I do think he has a lot of skills to bet on. I wouldn't take him at 4. I don't think the floor is there, but he is a good player.
Just real quick to add to what we said about Calvin Banks and Abdul Carter.
Yeah.
You're not hearing the names anymore. I haven't heard Ted McMillan's name in 3 weeks. What's going on with him and how did he fall off the map or fall? It's you see now mock drafts have him down to 20. And it's wait, what happened to him? And is he still available as a guy going in the top 5 of this draft?
I mean, he could. I think that there's concerns about his speed. The whole thing with the 40 time, I think, soured a lot of people. I think he's going to go higher than people expect. I just don't think he's in play at 4 for the Patriots. I don't think it makes a ton of sense for them at that point, at least locally. I think there's other markets that are still talking about him quite a bit, but not here. Let's go to Jason in Missouri on Abdul Carter. Jason.
Hey, Alex, I'd like to talk about a player I think you guys are overrating a little bit and a player you're underrating a little bit. Okay. Abdul Carter, I'd say, is the one you're overrating. To me, you guys mention him, and a lot of people are mentioning him in the same breath as Parsons. He seems more like Aaron Maben to me.
I'm not mentioning him in the same breath as Parsons, outside of the same school. People are doing that, though. You're exactly right.
If we're going to stick with the same school, I think he's closer to Aaron Maben, if you remember him from years ago.
Yeah.
How many NFL tackles did he face this year? West Virginia, Purdue, Oregon, Minnesota. If you want to go even deeper, Wisconsin. He had 0 sacks. 0 sacks against any of them. He's a guy that gets hurt a lot, hasn't proven against NFL quality competition. And if I'm going to a guy that I think you're underrating, as a guy that wanted to give up the farm and pay $30 million a year to DK Metcalf,
yep.
How are you not all over Thornton from Tennessee? He did it 1 year at Tennessee, but basically his college production in that 1 year was the same as the average of DK's 2 years of production. And I think if the Patriots are going to get a receiver, and they haven't drafted a quality one since, unless you count the converted quarterback out of Kent State, they haven't drafted a quality receiver since Branch. You got to start with your number one criteria being, let's not draft any receivers with he won't run by anybody is the number one thing you say about him. Because that seems to be everybody we look at. Well, he's not going to run by anybody, but he does this. So what do you think about Thornton? And what do you think about Carter being slightly overrated?
So thanks for the call, Jason. I'll say this on Carter. The Micah Parsons stuff is a step too far for me. I don't think Carson's is a traditional first overall pick. Some of that is the product of this draft. He's ahead of Maben. He reminds me a lot of Chop Robinson, who he replaced at Penn State in that role. The fact he's played a little bit off the ball gives him some edge because he has some more versatility. I would not put him in the same conversation as Parsons. I do think he's the best player in this draft, the best prospect in this draft. That's more about the draft than it is him. The caller mentions his production was a little stagnant. He did have a good game against Oregon, which has a couple of NFL tackles. As for Dante Thornton, so Dante Thornton is a fascinating one, Cerrone, because he's a 6'5", day 3 receiver that ran a great 40, whose last name is Thornton. And you know exactly what's going to happen if the Patriots draft him. Now, there are some differences. He's bigger. He's 6'5", but he's 205.
Yeah, that's a big dude.
He's built. He has more college production than Tyquan did. Not a lot, but he does have some. His production's been erratic, though. He never had more than 600 yards in a season. He was the national leader in yards per reception this year. The reason I'm not as in with him as I was Metcalf, he's really good at what he does, but he doesn't do a lot. Yeah, he doesn't run a diverse route tree. He doesn't do a ton after the catch. He's not going to do a ton, over the middle and the shorter parts of the field. He is a deep threat. Now, if you're going to tell me that they're going to get like a true slot, if they were to take, for instance, Travis Hunter at the top of the draft, and you're going to have Travis Hunter running option routes over the middle, and you're going to throw him the ball 10, 12 times a game, and then you're going to come back in like the 5th round and draft Dante Thornton and have him running go balls on the outside to force teams to stay honest, to keep space in the middle of the field, I'm all in. I'm all in. If you're drafting Dante Thornton because you think he's going to solve all your problems at wide receiver, that's a step too far. He's a complimentary player to me. He's a good complimentary player, and I know the callers mentioned the speed thing. You want fast guys, draft fast guys, right? There's got to be a little more to it. Yeah. He's fast, and that's kind of how I put it. Yeah. There is some and there with Dante Thornton. I'm not totally out on Dante Thornton, but I wouldn't say he's a replacement for DK Metcalf.
You want to get faster, draft fast guys?
Exactly.
Well, you got that Tennessee team. The whole team was explosive. All of them. They had a bunch of guys that were explosive. He was in a lot of situations where he got that one-on-one. I want to say he was the one that lit up NC State in that game early on where they just destroyed them. But they had a bunch of guys, Dylan Sampson, a couple other guys out there that would just, when they spread you out, it was a bunch of go routes and a bunch of speed guys. Very similar to, what's the kid? I know you know his name. The massive juggernaut receiver down in South Carolina that was a track star.
Nick Harbor.
Thank you. Similar to that. Just a pure juggernaut. But it's like his route tree is it's a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. But he's
well, he was a defensive end that wanted to play. Nick Harbor is like an alien. We'll get to Nick Harbor next year. I have plenty of thoughts on Nick Harbor.
I know, but he reminds me of that. Just a massive human that's whatever. What do you want me to do, coach? Just sprint down the sidelines and box out whatever 5'8" DB is on you. A very similar situation to that. And I think if he had I'm talking about the kid from Tennessee, if he had a deeper route tree, a deeper bag, let's say, his name would be mentioned a whole lot more with his size and athletic ability and the fact that he played in the SEC when he did some of these things. So, I mean, there's a reason why his name isn't being as mentioned as much. And when it comes to Abdul Carter, I think people have heard about him, people watched him play, whatever. But I think one of the big boosts for Abdul Carter was, like a lot of these guys, that playoff thing, the college football playoff. You got a chance to watch him every week against the best teams in the country.
Yep.
And it was week after week. You were like, even when he wasn't getting sacks, he was throwing people out of the club and left
impacting the game.
Double teams, triple teams. He throwing running backs out of the way. He might not have got the sack, got the numbers, but he was the reason that the defense was making an impact. And I think everybody got a chance to see that. And that's what skyrocketed his stock.
I'll add to, and it was a similar thing for Matthew Golden. He was boosted by the playoff, and we talked about this, how big the playoff was going to be for guys' draft stocks. The stat I was trying to remember, Marcus Mosier had this on Twitter. 28 wide receivers have been drafted in the first round since 2020. None of them averaged fewer yards per game than Matthew Golden in their best season. So of the 28, 26 averaged at least 76 yards. 25 averaged at least 80 yards per game. Matthew Golden is at the bottom of the list at 61.7 yards per game in his best season. So, look, the talent is apparent in flashes, but it's in flashes. You're betting on upside. It's just that kind of draft.
Yeah.
Whether it's with Abdul Carter, whether it's with Matthew Golden, whoever, it's just that kind of draft. And the Patriots slightly moved up in that draft is one way to put it late in the week. We'll get to that. The Joe Milton trade, we'll talk about that next. Plus your calls, 617-779-0985. After these headlines, 90 seconds, no commercials on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
From the Town Fair Tire Studios, this is your home for every Patriots game.
Look into the end zone, trying to keep the play alive. Falling down, he goes to the end zone. It's got it! Touchdown!
WBZ-FM at HD Boston. 98.5, the Sports Hub, a Beasley Media Group station. Sports Hub headlines, presented by Celsius Energy Drinks.
Big night for David Pastrnak last night. 3 goals, added 2 more assists as the Bruins beat the Carolina Hurricanes 5-1 at TD Garden. Jeremy Swayman made 39 saves in the win. The Red Sox rained out yesterday, so they'll play a doubleheader against the St. Louis Cardinals today. It's a 1:35 start for the first game, followed by a 7 o'clock start for the second one at Fenway. The New England Revolution visited FC Cincinnati last night. They lost that game 1-0. The New England Free Jacks host the Miami Sharks this afternoon. That's a 2 o'clock start. And the Men's National Championship in basketball is set after the Final Four last night. In the first game, Florida knocked off Auburn to claim 1 spot. And then Houston erasing a 14-point deficit with 8 minutes to go to beat Duke. Florida and Houston will play for the title on Monday night. The Women's National Championship game, that's later today, and it has UConn taking on South Carolina. And in the Valero Texas Open, final day of play getting underway, Brian Harmon enters play with a 3-shot lead. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Safety Insurance, providing comprehensive coverage for your auto, home, and business. Ask your independent agent about safety. I'm Alex Barth on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update is at 10 o'clock.
Some people play the game.
Hey, Jalen Brown. Blocked by Horford.
Some talk about
Let's
it.
welcome to the Sports Hub Celtics Show, by the way. Jim Murray, Chris Gasper.
The Sports Hub Celtic Show with Murray and Gasper, Saturdays at noon on the Sports Hub. You're listening to Sunday Kickoff with Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle on your station for the best football coverage. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Takes a high snap, drops back on second down and on short 4. He's rolling to his right, chased by a pair of Bills. Throws on the gun. The pass is going to be caught at the 20 by an open Booty who's going to trot into the right, into the end zone. Touchdown, Patriots.
Did I call it or did I call it? Get him outside the pocket. You've got one. You've got the first touchdown. I got the second one. Man, Milton.
Well, it was a fun 11 months. The Joe Milton era in New England is over. It's Alex Barth, Cerrone Battle here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. George Sepulveda behind the glass. Hour number 2. You want to join us, 617-779-0985. Joe Milton traded by the New England Patriots this week. It's Milton and a 7th to the Dallas Cowboys for a 5th. So the Patriots move up a handful of spots, essentially. I think it was 174 to 217, if I remember correctly. That's the trade. Joe Milton era comes to an end. I obviously had some thoughts on this. I had people like, "Are you okay?" I'm fine in the sense of like I'm happy for Joe Milton. That he's going to have, I think, a better chance in Dallas than he did here. What I mean by that is I don't know that he was going to be the backup here. I think there's a chance he was still going to be the 3rd string emergency quarterback, not truly active on game days.
Yeah.
He should beat out Will Grier for the backup job in Dallas. So I'm happy for Joe Milton, first and foremost. As for the trade, I have mixed thoughts on it. I don't love it. I think some of the concern is overblown or maybe misplaced. My big takeaway is if you decided you were going to trade Joe Milton today, right? We're starting the offseason program on Monday, April 7th. We want the guys who are here, who are going to be here, the guys that we're not bought into, right? If we don't need them here, we don't want them, whatever. Okay, fine. Mm-hmm. If you're going to trade Joe Milton today, I think they got more or less what they were going to get. You look at quarterback trades in recent years, and Milton did have some flashes. Don't get me wrong. We had some fun with Joe Milton. It was in the preseason. It was against the Bills backups. Like, pound for pound, that's probably the trade you were going to get, especially since the Patriots didn't have a 6th-round pick. Could you have done a 6-4 swap instead of a 7-5 swap? Maybe, but I think you got what you were going to get if you were going to trade him right now. But, and this is where my problem with it is, did you have to trade him right now? And I understand they wanted to make the room more conducive for Drake May and get people in around him and all of that. Everything I heard about Joe Milton and in my interactions with him and being around him, I don't think the guy didn't want to start. He's a competitor. He's an NFL player for a reason. If there's a guy in that league, especially a rookie, who tells you, I'm fine being a backup, he shouldn't be in the league. Mm-hmm. You got to be an apex competitor to play that sport or any sport at that level. But he was in a similar situation in Michigan, and by all accounts handled it well. He was in a similar situation in Tennessee with Hendon Hooker. Mm-hmm. By all accounts handled it well. I heard last year part of the reason the Patriots liked him was they got good feedback on him in those sort of situations. Mm-hmm. Might he have caused a little more of a stink eventually? Yeah, maybe. Could you have held on him through August and seen, maybe a team doesn't get the quarterback they want in the draft or somebody gets hurt in camp?
Someone gets hurt, yeah.
Right, now a team's a little more desperate. So that's my thing. Like, I don't think I don't want to hear the slander about Joe Milton was causing a problem again. Every interaction I had with the guy, everything I've heard about him, he's not that kind of person. He's really not. He's a unique individual. He's a good dude from just my personal interactions with him. You couldn't have waited till August. That's my big second guess, because when they took Joe Milton last year, this is what we weighed out, the upside. 6th round, you're drafting for traits. Joe Milton's arm was arguably the best single trait in that draft. All right, you're going to bring him in. We're going to have some fun. And, hopefully he increases value and they trade him for more than they took him for. Ultimately, that all happened. We had fun. I called him the most exciting player in the draft. I think he lived up to that, at least as much as he could. He gave us something exciting in a season that didn't have a lot of exciting things going on. But the flip side was, we don't want Zappy Fever 2.0. And I understand if this organization would be a little more sensitive to that after having gone through it with Zappy and Mac Jones. Now, it's a little different, but still, I understand they'd be a little more sensitive. I don't know. I think they could have waited through the summer. I don't think he didn't strike me as the kind of guy that was going to cause that sort of immediate issue, unless they went to him and said, look, we might move you. And he said, I want to hit the ground running. Can we get it done? And they wanted to do right by the player because, as we've talked about, this team needs to kind of earn some goodwill with the players as a whole. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's it. I also think now we'll get to that, but your thoughts on the Joe Milton trade as a whole?
Well, I think the last part you said, I think, is key. I think people think one thing that's extreme the other way, and the truth is right there in the middle. And I think what you said is key. If he came to them or they came to him and said, look, we're thinking about moving you, whatever, and he was like, well, could you do it early so I can go through the workouts? I can be as good as I can for wherever you send me. I have a full off season in Dallas to prepare and be ready to be, a backup quarterback or compete for a spot in Dallas, as opposed to you sending me there in July and August where I got to learn everything and I'm behind, I'm way behind everyone else to start the season. And if he said, just could you move me? If you're going to move me, could you move me now? And the other side, I was going to ask you, do you think they really saw, they know the value of these picks? Did they say, we need this pick before the draft? If we can get a 5th round pick that we're going to use in April in 2 weeks, we got to move him now so we can get that pick and we can use it, as opposed to you trading him in August, you'll wait until next year's draft. And the other part of it is, you're as good as the most recent thing you did. What if he comes out and has a bad camp, gets hurt or something like that, and now you got a guy with no value? A bunch of hypotheticals, but I think what you said at the end is more what I believe is what happened. If they went to him and said, hey, we're going to move you, and he said, just can I go now so I can get ready? And they said, all right, bet we're going to send you now. And that I can understand. This other stuff about him being a bad person, I never really heard any of that before. And like you said, they're all competitive. They all want to start. Right. They all think they deserve to play football. These guys have been the apex of football since they were children. Everywhere they've gone, high school, Pop Warner High School, 7-on-7 camps, college. All these guys were the best of the best. So they all think that they should be playing. So I'm not surprised at that at all. And one real quick, listening to the call from Zoe from Joe Milton his last game, it's so much of that. I think it got overlooked. It looks so good because that's coming off of the Chargers game. So anything was going to look like the greatest thing we saw that season. And you can hear the excitement in Zoe's voice, like, yes, it's something to cheer for. But we shouldn't put too much. I won't say too much. I think we put way too much in that game in general when it comes to Joe Milton. And we fell into the same Joe Milton trap, like you said, a year and a half ago, that Michigan and Tennessee fell into when it comes to him. So, I mean, but good for him. He has an opportunity. I think he'll be happy out there in Dallas. And we know Dak Prescott can go down at any minute, so he's probably going to be playing football this year in Dallas.
We'll see. We'll see. Look, I don't doubt he wants to be a starter. I don't doubt he thinks he can be a starter.
Yeah.
Could have waited 3 more months to just see if you could get a little more. That's my takeaway. And then I think they're going to add another quarterback or 2, really. They generally go through camp with 4. One of them, I think they'll sign like a Trace McSorley type, right, or a Nathan Rourke type. But I wouldn't be surprised either at the very end of the draft or as a UDFA if they add a quarterback. And do they try to do the same thing again? Now, nobody has the tools Joe Milton has in this draft, especially late. You might never see tools like that late in the draft again.
Not with that kind of arm strength.
But there are some guys that have some interesting traits. A guy like Brady Cook, a guy like Seth Hennigan. Now, these are not great quarterbacks. They have their issues, certainly. But I would not be surprised if they bring in another rookie quarterback to kind of add to that room.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would make sense to do so. And for depth and just having bodies out there for camp. You know, not taking reps from everybody else, but just having extra bodies and see who can hang around. Like you said, do it all over again. You take some guy in the 6th, 7th round. He shows flashes in the preseason. Now there's some guy off you a 5th round pick for him next year. So you just it's like stock. You're just stuffing them, in your bank there and just holding on to them. So I wouldn't be surprised they do the same thing all over again.
All right, back to your calls next here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
Welcome to the Joe Show.
Stay tuned for more Sunday Kickoff on the Sports Hub.
He's a pleasant, fun to coach. He wants to play football. You know, he just got to understand there's a little difference between being a quarterback and being the zone. They want you to cook the dinner. At least they ought to let you shop for some of the groceries. Okay?
Some other news this week. Bill Parcells will be inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame as a contributor. Robert Kraft announced down at the NFL owners' meetings. This has been a controversial one for a while. He was on the ballot multiple times. He, rightfully or no, he was never going to get in on the ballot because, frankly, there's too many kids voting that don't know who Bill Parcells is or have any concept of what he did. Cerrone, you can probably speak better to it than me. Is Parcells deserving of getting in the Patriots Hall of Fame?
You asked the wrong person, man. I don't think he is, but I understand people's reasoning for having him there because the change of culture. He changed the perception of the Patriots in the 90s from where they were in the 80s. Even though we look at the old Patriot uniforms and we just assume they were 2-win teams for a whole decade. And the reality was they were over 500, I think, all but 2 years of the 80s, even making the Super Bowl. But he changed the perception of this team nationally and just changed the way, changed everything for the better. And I think that's why he got in. But the flip side for me is, his first year, he had a 1-11 start, wins 5 games. He makes a wild card next year, then goes backwards 6-10 after that. And then he has the run where they make it to the Super Bowl, and then he leaves. So, and I think that's why a lot of fans, even those who were around back then, they still hold that against him, that he up and left on his team. And they, the stories of them knowing about it before the Super Bowl and all that other stuff. I think that's why a lot of fans, even the older ones, are saying, no, I'm not putting this dude in. He left when the team was on the come up and just kind of left them cold and went to their rival like that. But me personally, I didn't think the on-field stuff was reason for him to get into the Hall of Fame. But the cultural changes, I kind of understand where people come from with that. But my only pushback against that is I want to give more credit to the players that were here in the 90s, making them an attractive team. The Ben Coates, Drew Bledsoe, Curtis Martin, Ty Law, these guys, Terry Glenn, they became stars. They were the first group of Patriots, probably in the history of the team, where they were national stars. Drew Bledsoe was a star. These guys were in the commercials. They were selling jerseys and stuff like that. So I think I want to give more credit to those. I know he was a head coach, but I want to give more credit to those star players of the 90s of putting them kind of on the map. I mentioned yesterday, I think Drew Bledsoe going toe-to-toe with Dan Marino a few times was a bigger boost to the Patriots than anything anybody else did during that time. It was something we didn't see ever for a franchise, a superstar quarterback that was up there with the big guns like that. And I think Drew Bledsoe and those guys, Martin and Ben Coates, Terry Glenn, played just as big a role as Bill Parcells did, is putting that team on the map.
So would you put, and this is going to be controversial, obviously, would you put like Curtis Martin in?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, I understand saying he left, whatever, was he a player. He's a player, though. But Curtis Martin was a superstar. There's no doubt about it. Hall of Famer. Curtis Martin was the guy that all the kids wanted to be. When we play football outside, everybody wanted to be the running back. Everybody wanted to be Curtis Martin. He was a superstar, and him along with Drew Bledsoe, you started using them in video games. I mean, because of them, things you weren't doing before. You were buying their jerseys, the jersey changes, the starter jackets, all that stuff played into the boom of the New England Patriots in the 90s. And that season when they made their run just kind of solidified it for them. But I think Curtis Martin, absolutely, he was a superstar for the New England Patriots.
So now that Parcells is in, I think we find out soon who's on this year's ballot. Among the names, Adam Vinatieri, Julian Edelman, Logan Mankins, Ted Johnson, Lawyer Malloy, Wes Welker, some older names, Moise Tutupu, Julius Adams, Peter Brock, Ron Burton. If I had to guess the ballot, just based off previous years, the ballot's going to come down to Vinatieri, Edelman, and Mankins. As much as Edelman should be first ballot Patriots Hall of Famer, we are so past due for Vinatieri getting in. And I understand why. It's because he played for the Colts so long they couldn't induct him. But that it's incomplete without him. It is incomplete without him.
Be named after him.
And also, the team has used this to help the push for players for Canton, for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We saw them do it with Richard Seymour a couple years ago. Adam Vinatieri wrongly not being considered for the Pro Football Hall of Fame this year. Love Edelman. He gets my vote next year. I think it should be Adam Vinatieri.
Without a doubt. He should have been in the Hall of Fame. Same as if you're going to put, we mentioned this, if you're going to put Devin Hester in because of his contribution to special teams, Adam Vinatieri is the greatest special teamer of all time. I mean, there's no other way. All-time leading scorer, clutch, championships. I mean, isn't it all about winning? That's what I thought this whole thing was about. Adam Vinatieri should be in the NFL Hall of Fame, and I think he absolutely, like I just jokingly said, he's not only should be in the Patriots Hall of Fame, it should be the Vinatieri building. It should be named after him because of his contributions to this team and what he meant. And he was there for a long time. He goes back to the Parcells era and making clutch kicks and all that stuff. So Adam Vinatieri absolutely should be in the Patriots Hall, and then he should be getting his jacket in the Canton. No, without a doubt.
Yeah, that's the next one. He's got to be in. Welker will be an interesting one. So Mike Reese listed a couple other candidates who are nominated. He has Vinatieri again, Julius Adams, Peter Brock, Ron Burton, Julian Edelman, Chuck Fairbanks, Ted Johnson, Logan Mankins, Lawyer Malloy, Moisey Tutupu, Wes Welker. I think some of those guys, Adams should be in, Brock should be in, Fairbanks should be in. I wonder if they start doing like a yearly veteran committee guy. Right, they had Scar last year. Now Parcells, if that becomes a thing. Yeah. Where's Randy Moss?
Oh, that's a good question.
And I know it didn't end great with him here, and he wasn't here for a long time, but Wes Welker's in there.
There's a lot of guys in there that don't have Super Bowls.
Well, not necessarily who played in this era, but Randy Moss should be in. No?
Yeah, I mean.
I get more pushback on this take than I feel like I expect every time I give it. But
his impact on the Patriots was just as big as Bill Parcells.
Exactly. So, now, not over Vinatieri. I wouldn't even say over Edelman. But I think at a certain point, it's also, come on, it's Randy. Like, that speech would be awesome. The ceremony would be awesome. That the response he got when he came back for Brady's thing.
Yeah. That man is, in the short time he played here, it's very similar to the Kevin Garnett situation. It's almost to the point you forget he played for Minnesota.
Honestly, they both came.
Moss same path.
Had a detour in Oakland, but they both came from Minnesota. That's an interesting comp.
But they both don't really identify with those old teams anymore. Maybe because the way they were treated or whatever. Kevin Garnett is a Celtic through and through.
Right.
Randy Moss he breaks down in tears talking about the Patriots in his time here. That man is a Patriot in his heart. You would never find a receiver that had a greater impact on this team offensively. Yeah, I know that he didn't win the big one, but in his time here, how many times did he lose? Like 5 games in his time as a Patriot or something like ridiculous.
That. Yeah,
but I mean, you won't find a Patriot that was more dominant in his position in the time he was here than what Randy Moss did. You can't leave off a guy that shattered records that'll probably never be broken with this franchise again, and his impact on this team. And nationally, where they were saying this might be the greatest offense we've ever seen in the history of the sport, and leave him out of the hall. Now, there's some other guys who won Super Bowls and stuff like that, but yeah, I think eventually Randy Moss's name has to pop up there.
Long final segment, right to your calls when we come back here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff is on the way on the Sports Hub.
Amica Insurance is proud to be the exclusive auto, home, and life insurance partner of the 18-time champion Boston Celtics. When it comes to protecting the life you built, trust your insurance needs to Amica's award-winning service.
and swings the right leg.
Every football game starts with the kickoff. This is Sunday Kickoff with Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle on your home for Patriots football. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Final segment on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. Full phone lines. We'll get right to it. 617-779-0985 if you want to jump on when these open up. RJ in Cape Cod getting us started. RJ, good morning.
Hey, you guys got me?
Yep, gotcha.
Hey, sorry about that. So at 4, I would love the Patriots to take Abdul Carter, and then I heard something about maybe a second-round pick for Trey Hendrickson, and I think doing both of those would be a fantastic move. I don't think you can ever be good enough on the D-line. However, my second option would be taking Travion Henderson with that second-round pick. I think he's going to be a little bit better of a Tony Pollard type of player when Tony Pollard was, doing his thing in Dallas. Love to hear what you guys would think of those two.
Thanks for the call, RJ. If they can get Trey Henderson for a second-round pick, I would do that. I don't think you can use your first 2 picks on edge rushers. I get what you're saying with the depth, but they added volume there throughout the offseason. They really just need a guy at the top of the depth chart. And now, if you move both those picks or you use both those picks on defense, you're going to really struggle to find a left tackle. So they're both individually make sense. I don't know that I do them together. I like Travion Henderson. If they're willing to go running back that high in the draft, I think he's a good player. I do like Quinshon Judkins a little bit better. But, the upside feature back, I'd buy that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can get Trey Henderson, if you think you can get Henderson for a second-round pick before the draft, you're not taking Abdul Carter. You've got your guy. You've got your investment. You're putting all your money into that, first of all. You're going to have to pay him a ton of money. And he's your impact guy. He's defensive player of the year caliber player. That's your impact guy over there. Now you waste that first round. I'm going to say waste it. Your first round pick is going to Travis Hunter or left tackle. I think that's just an automatic if you're getting Hendrickson out of that. Because if you get him, your defense is good. We are set over there for the rest of this season and probably the next 2. So I think we're good to go over there. And I think if they do that, they're not going to waste them both on edge rushers.
Let's go to Floyd in Western Michigan on Joe Milton. Floyd.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
There is an article in the Yardbarker. Drake May's family not thrilled after Patriots draft another quarterback. I never agree with it. Evan Lazar, from the moment they drafted him, said the same thing. Chicago didn't draft a quarterback behind Caleb. Washington didn't draft a quarterback behind Jayden. And I understand Washington years ago drafted a quarterback, doubled up. But to me, after what the Patriots went through with McCorkle Jones and Bailey Zappi, why would you create an environment like that for your quarterback? The second part is Joe Milton goes out there on a Sunday and he turns into, for a game, he turns into Joe Montana. And to me, he cost you that game. I don't blame him for that, but I blame the Patriots because he never should have been on that roster. They should have trotted out some rinky-dink quarterback and should have lost that game. So to me, drafting him cost them more than he gained you. And my question for you two gentlemen is, did drafting Joe Milton cost the Patriots more than they got back from drafting him? Thank you.
No, not really. I get the point you're making with that last game, but you can't make that pick thinking, well, he might be too good late in the year. We might need to lose games. Like, you can't. Yeah. You can't take that approach. And
he was the rinky-dink quarterback they tried.
Right, exactly. He's a 6th-round pick. So as they're drafting both, I get why Drake May's family would be annoyed by it. Absolutely. But the football team still needs to do the business of the football team. That's been Elliott Wolf, where he comes from in Green Bay. That's what you do. You can never have too many quarterbacks because they always have trade value. It's an important position. That's the philosophy. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if they draft a quarterback this year. They're going to have 3 quarterbacks on the roster pretty much as long as Drake May's here, whatever his family thinks about that. So I think he's good enough that he shouldn't worry about it, but the team needs to do what the team needs to do.
And to what he said about Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams, I'm not sure what their depth chart was at quarterback, but they might have already had 2 guys there. So there was no point in them to add a 3rd guy or whatever. And I don't think anybody thought Joe Milton was a threat to Drake May from the minute he was drafted. We all knew the arm strength. We all knew what he can do. And those who watch college football literally watched him play for 6 years. So it wasn't like, oh, this is a surprise guy they brought in here. Everybody knew what he was all about. And he wasn't a threat to Drake May the whole time. Now, with Drake May's family and the reports about them not being happy, is it really? I mean, you're talking about a family of athletes, a family of guys that have played on multiple levels, including his father. And they understand how these teams are built and how they work and how they're competitive. I mean, how unhappy were they? I mean, I think they understand that they needed to fill the locker room. This is a family of athletes. They understand how these rosters work. So I don't know how mad they were or how threatened they were by Joe Milton. I think Joe Milton was more looking for an opportunity to play more than Drake May was worried about Joe Milton taking his spot.
I would agree with that. And again, I don't fault Milton for wanting to play.
No, he should want to.
I don't fault any player for wanting to play. I just don't know that could they have managed it for another 2 or 3 months to see if they can get more for him. That's all I'm saying.
And real quick with that, Alex, one thing I think if you're looking from Joe Milton's perspective, he's older than these guys. He's a lot older than these younger guys.
Drake May.
Yes, so he doesn't have the opportunity, the time to say, I'm going to wait around. I'll wait as a backup and then my time will come. He's 25. He'll be 26 years old next spring or whatever. He doesn't have time to wait around, so he has to capitalize on these NFL years as fast as he can, and he can't sit around like he's 21 years old and wait like the rest of these guys.
Doug in Virginia has a draft question. Doug.
Yeah, hey guys, love your show. Wish it was longer. I've got a comment and then a math question. The comment is there's a lot of media reports about the Patriots coaching staff saying how great these guys are and how much they like these guys, and it's kind of disingenuous because it seems like they're asked about these guys. It's not like they're spontaneously talking about them. What are they going to say? Oh yeah, this guy sucks. We don't want him. So that's my comment. The math question is, with all the disparity in the arm length measurements around college football, I'm not hearing about how when arms get longer or shorter, if the wingspans are getting longer and shorter correspondingly, especially with Will Campbell. Now that he is maybe officially a 33-inch arm guy, has his wingspan increased from the tiny little flappers that he apparently has. So I'll hang up and listen to you. Thank you.
Thanks for the call, Doug. So the wingspan measured in about the same at the pro day. I've talked to people who study the offensive line and things like that. Wingspan isn't a major issue on the offensive line.
In front of you.
He's an outlier. It's not that it wouldn't be a factor, but think about arm length practically how that applies. You can it's pretty easy to just go through that. Wingspan. Yeah. How often are you arms out wide as a tackle? If you get into that position,
that's a holding call.
Something's already gone terribly wrong. So, it matters some. It's more about the shoulder width and how much space you're going to take up. I think that plays more probably at guard than tackle. It would worry me more at guard than tackle.
Yeah,
I'm not as worried about wingspan. I've never heard wingspan kind of became a thing. I think because everybody's, and I don't fault people for this, everybody's always looking for something to hype up the prospect they like or push down the prospect they don't. And I think wingspan kind of became a thing for people who are out on Will Campbell and some of these other tackles. I've never heard wingspan used for tackles the way I've heard arm length used. And I think the arm length thing's a little overrated to begin with. If the wingspan is what buries him, he probably wasn't that good of a player to begin with. That's
true.
Just the reality.
And the thing is, like you talked about, the arm length is different because if I'm going head up with a defensive end, if his arms are longer than mine, he can get his hands on my chest and throw me off balance. But if I got him beat, I can hold him at bay. Whereas, like you said, wingspan, if I'm reaching at Micah Parsons going by and I got my arm like this, he's going to just chop me down or I'm going to get a holding call wrapping him up. So it's not going to matter. And I think the wingspan thing, it's important if you're a skill position guy, wide receiver, DB. Can he get his hands on the pass? What's his catch radius or things like that? So tight ends, wide receivers, I understand wingspan. But for an offensive lineman, it's almost like his vertical leap. Like, okay, when's he going to be jumping? But it's they measure all of it. But like you said, Alex, if they're using this at the end, you're nitpicking and you're not really that level of player to begin with. And if that keeps you out of it, then you weren't the player that they thought you were from jump.
Let's go to Pat in Whitman on the Patriots Hall of Fame. Pat.
Morning, gentlemen. How are you? I got to go back to your segment on Parcells.
Okay.
He absolutely deserves to be in the Patriot Hall of Fame. He built Gillette Stadium. That was under construction during their reign in 2000, 2001. Bill Parcells, I believe, drafted Curtis Martin in the third round and Vinatieri, who you were both talking about, and pumped the brakes on the players because Parcells picked them. And he is absolutely deserving to be in the Patriot Hall of Fame. No question asked.
All right, thanks for the call, Pat. He did it. It's kind of, remember we did this with Dan Duquette and the Red Sox after 2004?
Yeah, it's like, well, this is his team.
Like, who built it now?
Pedro Manning.
Yeah, Bill obviously, he drafted Brady, and they made a bunch of big signings in that offseason. It's not to say he didn't have his hand. Bill certainly had his hand on that 2001 team, of course. But there are Parcells guys up and down that roster, including Bill himself, honestly, right, was here with Parcells. So
that might have been his biggest contribution to the Patriots.
And if getting Bill Belichick here, like if that's a Parcells thing, that might be Red Jacket worthy on its own. Sam in Western Mass with a thought on Bill Parcells.
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Morning.
Just to reiterate what the previous caller said, I remember the days when Chuck Fairbanks left the Patriots during that playoff game. Everybody was up in arms. So I agree. Parcells should be. He brought credibility in the coaching ranks when Kraft was able to get him. So I remember the days of the 2-14 McPherson teams sitting on the aluminum benches at Old Schaefer, Foxborough, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, Parcells deserves it. And I think it's long overdue. I didn't realize that Vinatieri wasn't in. That's almost a crime. But I'll hang up and let you guys talk about it. Have a great day.
Thanks for the call, Sam. I think with Vinatieri, like they couldn't induct him when he was playing for the Colts. It was hard enough to induct Vrabel when he was coaching for the Titans, although that ended up maybe landing Vrabel here. By inducting him, that might have gotten him fired from Tennessee. So that obviously worked out. But yeah, Vinatieri should be in. Vinatieri should be in soon. As soon as possible, and then you go Edelman. I'm still gonna, again, I get more pushback on this than I'd expect. I'm still gonna pound the table for Randy Moss too.
Yeah, I think I'll be right there with you with that one. But just a quick question with the Patriots and people saying, you know, how he brought them back to relevance or whatever, or made them a relevant team. Did he make them super relevant nationally, or was it he made them hotter than the Red Sox and Celtics, which we thought would be impossible in Boston? He make them hot in the city, as opposed to, like, to me, I don't think they were ever looked at on the same level as the other great teams of the 90s, the Denver Broncos with Elway, the Dallas Cowboys, the 49ers, these higher top tier teams. I think we kind of look at them, the Green Bay Packers back then, we look at them as being as that type of popular, but I think they were that popular locally. He made them the hottest thing in the city, which we thought was impossible in the region. But I don't know if he made them a marquee team to everybody else. They had that playoff run, but I compare that to, you know, what Carolina did back in 2003 when they made it to the Super Bowl, or Atlanta when they made it in 90.
You're talking about 86 or 85.
No. I'm talking about the Patriots Super Bowl run in 96 with Parcells. And you had like Atlanta, I think, win in 97 or 98. It didn't put Atlanta on the market, on the level of the top tier NFC teams. They were a good team, but I don't think it made them a sexy team around the nation like I think a lot of Patriot fans think the Patriots were back then. But locally, I think Parcells made them bigger than, like I said, this was a Red Sox, Celtics, Bruins town. The Patriots were last. I think he put them up near the top back in the 90s.
I mean, they were in the Super Bowl a few years, I guess, is maybe underselling it. But, like, they were in it in 85.
Yeah.
So it's not like they'd never been there before.
And they were, like I said, they were good in the 80s. When you go back and look at the records, they were actually winning 10, 11 games a few times in the 80s. And we look at them like they were just a one-win team for a whole decade before he got here.
Because they weren't taken seriously.
Yeah.
And that kind of change. Look, I vaguely remember the end of the Parcells era. That was kind of the earliest memory. Like, I remember, I'm old enough to remember, like, I was watching games and I knew Parcells was the coach. I don't remember much beyond that. So I can't speak to what they were before he got there. I just know you hear the stories about, and obviously Robert Kraft's a big part of this too, but like, how close was the team to getting to St. Louis?
Moved.
And Parcells kind of giving them enough cachet to avoid the move to St. Louis, avoiding the move to Hartford. Obviously, that's a Robert Kraft thing. But, him and Bledsoe doesn't mean Brady and Bill wouldn't have had success. But are the St. Louis Stallions the 6-time Super Bowl champions?
Yeah.
They want you to cook the dinner. At least they ought to let you shop for some of the groceries.
And he also gave us one of the great one-liners for a franchise that had maybe the great one-liner press conference head coach of all time. That's right up there with Bill's greatest hits, I would say.
I'm glad you played that. Like the previous calls were saying, well, he's responsible for bringing in all these players, whatever. But wasn't his biggest complaint is he couldn't bring in the players?
But didn't it change? Wasn't he didn't they start taking power away from him?
Yeah, the Terry Glenn draft, I think, pushed him over the top.
Right, and that was the problem. Yeah. So he brought in these guys, and then once they let him stop, or once they made him stop, that's when the issue was.
Yeah, that was the end of it, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's tough, but the comparison I made yesterday is simple. If Mike Vrabel over the next 4 years, if he gets a 1-11 start this year, makes a wild card, gets beat, and then next year goes 6-10, and then wins 2 playoff games and makes it to the Super Bowl, are you putting Mike Vrabel, and then leaves for the Jets, are you putting Mike Vrabel in the Patriots Hall of Fame after that?
Well, the cool thing is Vrabel's already in.
I mean, but as a head coach,
yeah.
If with a 500 record and 2 playoff wins in 4 years, are you putting him in the Hall of Fame?
I think, and this is where people get annoyed with Parcells because they judge him against what the Patriots are now, and how can you put that in? And I'm with this, like all Hall of Fames across the board. You got to go by what the standards are at the time that the person was playing or coaching. By the current Patriot standards for Vrabel, that would be coming up short, right? They got to get back to not just being in the Super Bowl, but winning a Super Bowl. For what the Patriots were then, that was great. It's like you look at guys that played in the 60s and, look at his route running's terrible and he's not fast enough now. Well, yeah, it was 50, 70 years ago. Obviously, he's not going to be as good, but you got to judge him by the expectations of that time. You look at some of the steroid era guys in baseball. It's only fair to judge them by what was going on during their era. So for what Parcells was at the time, great. If that's what Vrabel is, it's in an entirely different context to me. But if he wins a Super Bowl, he should be in as a coach. And I wonder if they'd put him in like a second time. I wonder if they'd do one of those things.
And just change it. You just write something else underneath it.
Just put
a different
50 / or linebacker / coach or something like that. So that'll do it for us on this week's Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. George Spolver behind the glass. Great job. Cerrone, as always, was a pleasure. If you missed any of the show, you can find it on the Sports Hub YouTube channel. You can also find it Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back next week. A lot more draft talk, I'm sure, to get to as we keep going here. We got 3 of these left. 2 more before the draft, and then the season finale will be that Sunday after the draft where we'll put a bow on all of it. So until the next one, for Cerrone Battle, I'm Alex Barth. We got Matt McCarthy and Joe Murray coming up next.
More Sunday Kickoff coming up on the Sports Hub.
Hey, Bruins fans, it's game day. Tune into the game right here on 98.5 The Sports Hub. And remember, for every Bruins save this season, McGovern Automotive Group donates $25 to the Boys and Girls Clubs of Newton. Bruins hockey and giving back. That's a winning combination.
Contractors for over 100 years, Sudbury Lumber has been supplying your industry with everything you need, like Matthews Brothers Windows, to make your next project a success. Sudbury Lumber offers a full line of building materials, including Matthews Brothers Windows and anything else you need for your next job. Sudbury Lumber offers expert advice and exceptional customer service to contractors and homeowners alike. Visit Sudbury Lumber today to see their selection of Matthews Brothers Windows at 28 Union Avenue in Sudbury, or call them at 978-443-1680. That's 978-443-1680.
Ever wish you could be a world champion like the Boston Celtics? Well, even if that's not a